Hello everyone. Ted Simpson here, certified Bob Ross instructor. We've got our 12 by 16 canvas landscape orientation, black gesso dried completely, little bit of liquid clear. That's why it's got a little shine to it. So what we're going to do is work on a version of Bob's Misty morning, Misty oval, something like that. Misty Meadow oval. It was an oval painting that I'm doing on a non-oval situation today. And I'm just mixing up my undercolor. Lots of alizarin crimson, a lot less blue. And if you want to test it, rub a little white into it. That's the color I'm looking for. Don't often get it just in one. But I'd rather you add a little bit of blue at a time. Too much blue will just overwhelm everything. So, probably I'm going to need to make a little more of this, but let's see. I'm going to work some paint into my brush, and I'm going to start little circles, little overlapping circles, right in the center, and just kind of work my way out. A little bit of color worked into the brush. I want to cover the whole canvas with a thin coat of the purple. I'm just focusing already. I've gone all the way out like this, so I'm just using the last of this purple and filling in the corners and working inwards. See that? Kind of like that. That's kind of what's happening here. So, doesn't take very long. I can get that done, just a thin film of that purple. So hopefully, I'm going to touch 4 different spots, and I've got variations of how much paint. Look at that. That one right there, a little heavy, so I pick some up with the brush and just move it around a little bit. I don't want to overwork it. You can actually feel sometimes when you're brushing across, if it catches a high point of paint, too much paint, you'll feel it. So you just kind of spread it outwards. There we go. Let me try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty much the same. That's good enough. Now, the big difference of what I'm doing today versus what Bob did is he used liquid white to build out his color. He doesn't do that too often. Most of the time he uses titanium white to build out the bright spot in the sky. I remember the first time when I was starting out, I did I believe it was a season 2 or even a season 1 episode. Gosh, I should do a little more research before filming, right? And he did the, I think it was called Blue Moon. No, not Blue Moon. Anyways, he did it with the liquid white. I did it with the liquid white, and it was a mess. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a little bit of the liquid white, just a drop on my brush, and mostly just titanium white. Okay, picking up a little bit of color, and we'll see where it goes from there. So crisscross stroke right in my bright spot, and then that's where I want my bright spot to be, that is. And I work my way outward. The harder I push, the more white comes off my brush. So I can kind of feather it out. If I need a little more paint, I just push a little harder as I'm working my way out. We'll worry about blending and softening later. What I'm going to do is clean my brush. I do want it a little brighter. I want more of a bright spot. So I'm going to clean my brush thoroughly. Where is my bucket? Clean that brush thoroughly before going back into your paint. And I want it a little brighter here. There. And now working my way out. Only out if you can manage it, you know, if at all possible. Don't go back in or you'll darken your light spot. That's all. Okay, there's a nice little light area there. Now once again, I'm going to give my brush just a quick clean. A little bit on the easel for Bob. There we go. Now, I can go over it with the dry brush. Simple, light, crisscross strokes. Let that side of the top hit. Now, of course, the more you hit it, the more you'll fill in dark spots. The lighter you touch takes out the brush marks. So, you got to remember there's a limit to the blendability, depending on how much undercolor you have there and how much white you're putting on. At some point, the reverse starts happening. You'll start taking the color back off. So, blend it from the inside out, or the brightest to the darkest. And then Bob does these final little sweeps just to take out any final brush marks. And it's a simple little sky. No big deal. Now, let's see here. I still have some color here. Same purple color, and I'm going to add just a little bit of white to it. How much? Well, that's up to you. Just want this a little bit lighter. And let's put some indications here. Now what I'm doing, what Bob does here, is he brings that corner over and he's tapping with the corner. Okay? The harder you tap, or change the angle, the rest of the brush will hit and deposit some paint as well. But I don't have to force it with the whole brush at once. I just kind of let the brush tap, do its thing, and put a little background tree. These are off in the distance here. The more paint you have in your brush, the harder you tap, it's going to affect it. And then, let's come in here. I almost need just a little bit more purple, but I'm going to add just a touch of blue. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and make a little more purple. This is a good indication for me. I'm teaching this painting tonight. Haven't done it in a little while, so this is a good indication to me how much paint to put out for my students. There we go. And with a little bit of white, a little bit, oh, see that color? A little bit more blue really changes it. Now I can get a little more paint in my brush of the right color. And maybe there'll be some other trees off a little deeper in the shadows. So just tapping in some basic shapes here. Trying to make a little bit of this on the fly. A little less white in it. Oh, there it is. Just some basic tree shapes. A lot of this is getting covered up with highlights, so we don't worry about it too much. Little bits of the sky are kind of peeking through here and there. Maybe there's another line of trees here that's overlapping a bit of the previous tree. That's how things work, is they overlap as they get closer. And with a little bit of this color, let's just sort of chop off where the sky is. And all of a sudden we've got bushes in front. Little bits of blue and crimson, making a lavender color to whatever side you want. It's totally fine. And I'm thinking here, I love this brush so much, I'm going to take just a little bit of liquid white on the 1-inch oval brush, the black-handled oval brush. I had a little brain fade there. And if it's just a little bit off-white, just like what I'm tapping here, that's what we're looking for. It doesn't need to be super bright. Unless you're going for a full winter scene there, you can make this as snowy as you like. So I'm just tapping here and there. Oh, I'm going to stop right there. We've got to do some branches before we drop in all our highlights. So a little bit of paint thinner and the same color you used, and I'm thinning it down very, very thin. Bob even said like water. So when I get that paint nice and thin, I roll the brush to bring it to a point, and then I can come up here and add some little indications of sticks and branches back here. And here in the front there might be a couple little ones sitting around, a couple here and there. Got plenty of this color, but it does evaporate quickly. I'll roll the brush, get some. If it's not thin enough or you don't have enough on your brush, you can always make a little more. Always make a little more. There's some nice faded ones, just off in the distance. And when I work my way back, I get that slightly darker color so that it stands out a little more on the leaves that are a little darker. Maybe there's one that just kind of trails up. There we go. A tall old tree. There we go. Now when I tap, pick up a little bit of this color and put a little out there. Same thing with this side. I'm going to change the color just a little. I am touching with the unbelievably light touch, just barely letting those bristles touch the canvas, and it will come off a little more controllable instead of just boom, 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 big old blotches everywhere. There we go. Now I'm adding a little bit of blue to my mix. Don't forget just a speck of the liquid white. That helps it come off the brush a little easier because we are sticking paint to paint. Let's see here, a little more deeper blue, a little less white, I think. Now look at that, there's my color. I don't want this too bright. We're moving away from the light source, so the color changes a little bit. Here and there, making these little canopies, so to speak, these little sections of the tree branches here. Same thing with this side. A little bit of highlight here and there. Not too much on this side. A lot of this is going to get covered up, so too deep in shadow to see much detail. Now we got this background tree. This third layer here, another little section. So if I change the color just a little, it helps it stand out from the previous one. There we go. Now while we're at it, we can do a couple of these little guys in front, and I'm going to change the color again, maybe a little crimson in it. Look at that. And just here and there, pick out a couple of highlights. Excuse me. I don't know how Bob ever did it without coughing once in a while. Little highlight. And maybe there's some little bushes and such over on this side. If you want to put a couple in. If you don't, you know, it's all up to you. So here comes the fun. Let's go ahead. I might have to clean a brush here, or I can always just grab a new one. A clean, dry brush. And just a little bit of the liquid white. I'm going to grab some. Ooh, you know what? I need some different yellows here. I just kind of went boring and just went one color. So, if I can now, I'll do this one-handed here. Squirt out a little bit, won't need too much, of the Indian yellow. And can't forget about yellow ochre. And we can't forget about, oh my goodness, just a little bit of bright red. There it is. So, a little bit of the liquid white. I start pulling my yellows through. Here's some, there's that, there's a little of this. Look at all that color. A little bit of green. We're making our grass here. So I'm pulling some color through and tinting it, loading some different flavors in here. Not really letting it mix so much. But look how I get this. The bristles are starting to collapse. Get a nice chiseled edge, and then I tap forward, giving it this little push as I'm tapping. It creates a little ridge of paint, right like that. See that? And what I'm going to do is start defining where my grass begins. I can just cut right under those bushes. Now that I'm running out of paint, I let it come up over into the shadowy bits a little more. And it's going to mix a little bit here with the purple undercolor that I covered the whole canvas with. As I'm doing this, look at this, one brush full is doing all this work. Did almost half of it, right? I come back, I add a little more colors. All these different flavors. Touch of the liquid white just to help loosen it up a little. All these different things. And I'm going to pick out a spot overlapping a little bit of what I did. Make a little extra hill, a new section of this land. And I'm just tapping away, working downwards. Tapping, overlapping, letting it mix with that purple, and it's automatically mixing and dulling as I run out of paint, and it's mixing with the purple. Look how it just keeps getting darker. Sometimes I start lowering my voice to a whisper here when I want things to happen slowly and easily. Look at that. Now, Bob took a little bit of titanium white. I'm not sure if he had the whole brush clean. I don't think he did. I'm going to load a little bit of this. Ooh, there's some blue there, so let me pull some white over here. And I'm pushing, getting it right on the tips. Now, this might be difficult. Normally, a thin paint sticks to a thick paint, and this is the thickest, trying to stick onto a little bit thinner. So if this doesn't come off, I'll just force it. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid white. We want to put an extra little highlight where that sunlight is kind of zinging through. Right there on the edge. And Bob said this like 3 times, and I'll reiterate for you. Just in some spots, just where you think the sunlight is zinging. If you do too much, it kind of ruins the effect. Did I do a little too much? We'll never know. It's kind of a personal thing, you know? There it is. I think that's just about enough. Boy, but you really want to go back and hit it. The more you hit it, you'll just start darkening it down again. So play around with it a little bit. Try not to do it too much. That's kind of nice. So, I'm going to wipe that white out of my brush and go back into just the straight colors. No more titanium white, that is. Maybe a little more green. Maybe even a touch of brown, just to dull things down a little bit. And, ooh, I tell you what, I didn't do this in my example that I'm taking with me, but I'm going to do it here. Because I watched the episode again, I thought, you know what, maybe my painting is a little too simple, so let's do what Bob did and add some stone, some exposed rock or something. A little bit of Van Dyke brown here or there. Just laying it on, just let it on. And our highlight color, the old white and dark sienna mix, pulled out to a, there we go, a little too much there, huh? Now I'm going to actually add just a little bit of the yellow, a little bit of bright red, just to change the color to my liking. Boy, I have to really change the color to my liking. There's a nice, interesting mix. Now with that light touch, let it just kind of bump, lay on a little bit, and move on to the next one. I'm pulling some over, letting some of that shadow remain. We need the dark and the light working together, so don't cover up all the dark brown. All right, now I can come in here and put a little bit of grass on this side of it. Pushes that rock down into the grass. It looks like the grass is kind of growing over the rock. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and extend this out a little bit. We can cover this whole canvas if we like. I do have some plans for the left side here, but we can bring this out just a little further. See how it's falling away into shadow as we move away from the light source. One of the hardest things to understand and do it when you're painting is to let things be dark. On a black canvas, we want things to be dark, so less painting we do, the darker it will remain. Let things fall away, and let some of that black canvas do its job and show you all those deep shadows. That's pretty nice. I tell you, you want to hit just a little bit more right there, huh? Yeah, a little zinger. All right, I tell you what, let us take, some Van Dyke brown. I think Van Dyke brown will be a good idea. Maybe even a little midnight black. And once again, using my mix here, I'm mixing up a small pile of very thin color. Not as thin as the branches we did, mind you, but thin. We do want it to flow out of the brush fairly well. Not really like water, more like, well, liquid white almost. That type of loose consistency, but not runny. And now, big decision time. I touch light, I push in as I pull down and make it bigger. Couple of trunks. A little light touch, push a little harder, give it a little wiggle and a ziggle. And move on to the next. A wiggle and a ziggle. Very important. The ziggles are extra important. And I kind of taper this off at the bottom, make it look a little flatter. Maybe make an indication of a root or a root. Roots and ruts. Now if I were to take a touch of the liquid white, loosen up that color a little bit, find the color, maybe it's too light, too dark. Who knows what's going to stand out until we do it, right? I'm going to run down the one side, just an indication, all right? Just an illusion. of a highlight to that trunk on the side facing the light source. Try not to fiddle with it too much. And with my color again, dark color, we could probably throw a couple of branches out here, right? They're going to get covered up with quite a bit of branches here, so you get a little practice playing around with branches, and you're not too worried if they don't turn out exactly the way that you like, because we're going to cover them up. I do love covering them up those happy accidents. Ooh. I have a glare from the light shining on this painting. I'm kind of flying blind in some spots here. But that's okay. Got a couple of branches now. Now, let's see what we got. I'm going to come back here with an oval brush, a nice clean oval brush, and let's go into that black and brown, add a little green to it. Tapping that color. Look, I'm really just doing one side up here at that beveled part of that brush. You don't need to cover the whole brush this time. And we got to get free. We got to get tappy. And just tap in some flavor here. Just a little hunk of color. And move on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reload. 1, 2, 3, 4. Reload. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, just sort of randomly tapping, not moving the brush all over the place, creating these little clumps. Now in this scene, in Bob's scene here, he highlighted this with the blue color. You, of course, have complete autonomy to find whatever color floats your boat. Okay, we want a little bit of paint in the brush. Let's just say a moderate amount. See how I'm tapping and I get that texture? That's your guide. You know, sometimes we want just a little bit, no texture. Sometimes we want this lacy effect here, and that's going to deeply load the brush right on the tips. And let's see if it works. There it is. Now when I run out of paint as I'm tapping, look how I run out of paint as I go down the clump. I'm going to go ahead and thin this out a little bit, and you're more than welcome to. You want this coming off with a light touch. So highlighting here and there some of the dark. I'm glad that I did this. Next time I won't add the green to my shadow color, and I'll keep this color a little brighter blue. You might get some little teal things happening. If you like that, keep the green. Or if you don't want to see it mix as much, add just a little bit more liquid white, and the color will come off easier without blending in with the shadow. Let me show you there. A little more liquid white. Tap it right up into the tips of the brush, and then it comes off quite a bit lighter and brighter and easier. There it is. Now, we can't forget some bushes and stuff. Maybe there's more things going on here than we realize. And we've got our 1-inch brush. So what I'm going to do, I've got some of this, ooh, that's a lot of paint thinner. I forgot to beat the devil out of this one. That could have been disastrous. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some color, pulling some down here, tapping, turn my brush over, and push up. put some little bits of foliage at the bottom. And in my scene, I also have some on this side. See that bending? Look, even with this dark paint on a dark canvas, you can see that texture. Push, make a little shape here. We don't really have to decide the specifics of these bushes yet, just some basic shapes. And the highlights will bring out all the different individuals. So we can just kind of push, push, push and move right along. So, let's see here. Let's clean out our brush. Actually, I have the highlight brush from where I did the grass. So, let me get a little more paint. Once again, I'm pulling down using the tips of the bristles. Let's see if I can't get that. There's the angle. Look at that. Pulling. And then tint with whatever flavors you like. But we want to see that texture, or it's not going to work as well. Bring that handle right around up. And I come up here and just gently push forward, turning the brush to make a basic little bush shape. And I think here, not to give you too much risk here, but the more paint, the better. If you're trying to make some nice lacy leaves, more paint, the better. Just less pressure. See that gentle touch. That paint comes off thick or gooey. Now I'm going to switch it up. I changed the color a little bit. Let a little yellow ochre dropping down, overlapping a little bit of what I've done already. And that gives you variation, depth, distance, a little green in there. That makes sense. Reload the brush for every bush. There it is. We want that nice lacy effect without fighting it. Pushing too hard is a good way to make mud. There we go. Ooh, there it is. And leave little pockets of dark in and around these bushes. Ooh, one more. Ooh, one more. And there we go. I wonder if I were to take just a little bit of white and titanium white just on that brush, getting plenty of this lighter color. If it's thinner, it will stick, and maybe you could put a couple of little zingers on the outer edge of these that are catching the light. Zing! Now it's all over but the details. How much more do you want to fiddle, you know? You could say, perhaps, there's maybe a little branch kind of coming out of this one. Old dead tree. And let's see here, if I thin down a little bit of that highlight color, don't want to overwhelm the whole scene with this, but let's put a little highlight on up one side. A couple little sticks and twigs here and there. Maybe, if I thin down this color enough, we can't really scratch through the canvas and see the white there because it's a black canvas, so a couple little white sticks and twigs you can put in and around here. Oh, we forgot to highlight that, didn't we? That's easy enough. Tap, tap, tap. See, these out here don't have as much detail, so instead of pushing and with a ton of paint, I'm just stippling with the top part of the brush. Same concept applies here, a little bit above the dark. Work your way down and leave some shadows. Ah, that was super fun, super fast. Did we almost go Bob speed here? Oh, it's about 35 minutes, so nope, 10 minutes past Bob speed. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I felt a little rushed for some reason, but hopefully you got something out of it. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.